I will continue to discuss about the notable works of Indonesian literature. Gurindam. Gurindam or Jawi is a type of irregular verse forms of traditional Indonesian and Malay poetry. It is a combination of two clauses where the relative clause forms a line and is thus linked to the second line or the main clause. Each pair of lines or stanza provides complete ideas within the pair and has the same rhyme in its end. There is no limit on the number of words per line and neither the rhythm per line is fixed. Gurindam, it is a form of poetry that is not bound or conditional. Each line usually contains 3 or 4 or 6 words and reconstruction pattern A or B. So each piece is a part of a conservative idea and usually requires some line or duplicate to state the whole idea. So, ang Gurindam pud kay nag-contains of advice or nag-teach sa truth in contrast to the spell. So, ang Gurindam does not contain magic and in contrast to the race, it does not refer to the genealogy or local law. So, Gurindam can also summarize free poetry, which is synonymous as modern poetry, especially in the early stages of the development. This is one of the example of Gurindam. And one of the most well-known literary works on Gurindam was the Gurindam Dowa Bilas or 12 Gurindam of Raha Ali Haji, written in 1847. So below is the fifth clause of the famous 12 Gurindam. So naa siya kanang Romish script and napod siya literal English translation and Jawi script. So since dili na ko siya makuan, so basahon na lang nako ang Romish script kay medyo lisod jud siya. So ang Romish script sa Gurindam 2 is Chika hindak mingenal orang berbang sa lihat kipada boditan bahasa. Chika hindak mengenal orang yang berbahagya sangat memilihirakan yang sia-sia. Jika hendak mengenal orang mulia, lihatlah kepada kelakuan dia. Jika hendak mengenal orang yang berilmu, bertanya dan belihat tiada. Jika hendak mengenal orang yang berakal di dalam dunia, mengembal bikal. Jika hendak mengenal orang yang baik barangay, lihat pada ketika bercampur dengan orang muat. So, ang literal English translation niya is, if the well-born you would identify, look for their kindness and courtesy, those who are happy and prosper, waste and idleness though forswear. If the noble you would perceive, look you at how they behave. If it's ones with knowledge you require, of questions and learning do not retire. As for the wise, it's easy to tell. In this world, for the next they provide well. If the good nature are home you seek, when they're with company you must speak. Gurindam Dowa Bilas is a 19th century Malay poem written in rhyming couplets with free meter. So makita man dyan nato sa kuan no sa poem. And it has 12 parts, each dealing with a different puzzle or issue. So it was composed by Raha Ali Haji. And although Gurindam looks similar with sa Eric Salas nga explanation ni Ariel, which is also have the same rhyme at the end of each stanza, and it differs in the sense that it completes the message within the same stanza while Saer unfolding the message in several stanzas. So, ang first line sa Gurindam is known as Sharat or Prutasis, and the second line is Jowas or Apudusis. And in other words, the first line states a condition while the second line provides the answer. Next is Hikayat. Hikayat an Arabic word that literally translates to stories, and it is a form of Malay literature which relate the adventures of heroes from kingdoms across the Malay archipelago, the spanning of modern Indonesian and Malaysia, especially in Sumatra, or chronicles of their royalty. The stories they contain, true based on history, are heavily romanticized. Hikayat stories are usually long and tell about a person or an important event. So usually ang hikayat is story siya about sa the legacy of oral story, rather formal. So most hikayat stories are written in a form where readers will read them loudly for listeners to hear. Legend of Putiri Gunung Lidang is one of the example of hikayat, and it is all about the beauty of the princess where some men nagapas sa iyang kagwapa, and akong i-share ninyo kung unsa ang naitabo sa story. I-summarize lang ako siya. So, ang Puteri Ganong Lidang is by far the most famous princess in Malaysian folklore. So, the fairy princess resides at the summit of Ganong Lidang, the highest mountain in peninsular Malaysia. In stories, she is known for setting impossible tasks for reject the proposal of Sultan Mansur Shah of Malacca. And captivated by her mystical beauty and power, kay gwapa man siya, the Sultan sent Hang Tuah and several warriors to relay his proposal. And the princess asked the 7 demands be fulfilled before she accepts him. A golden walkway from Ganong Lidang to Malacca, or the 7 trays of the heart of germs, 7 bundles of young betel nut juice, 7 barrels of virgin tears as a silver cup with the blood from the Sultan's son. So grabe ka taas kay hear ni bayanan no, kay not only was the Sultan unable to hurt his son, he drove his kingdom to ruins trying to fulfill the other requests. Grabe gid maka-request si princess. So Puteri Ganong Lidang still lives in the mountain to this day. So in 2004, this legend was turned into a film of the same name, starring Tuara Chakelina and M. Nasser. Okay, dili na po sa babad. Babad, or historical chronicle, is widely known as the genre of traditional Javanese literature. The genre came to Sunda in the 18th century through the Japanese administrations who occupied certain territories of Sunda. In Javanese, it is a narrative of past events telling, for example, about the founding of a new settlement or insurrection against an older power. The Javanese chronicle is a literary work written in a poetic metrical form which is intended to be sung. Ang babad kay it is a story or about the past, the story about the past, traditional literature, and then actually characteristics of this kind of literature that is written in metrical form and it's governed by a set of strict conventions. So muna ang kasagara nga kanang form sa babad. And the most notable work ani nga babad is the Indonesian folk tale, which is everybody has his warden. So ang author ani is no author. It's an old folk tale transmitted orally. And kung sa public information, before 20th century, after coming of Islam, the 30th century, famous folktale in the country. So the movement of Pujang Malama, the literature of olden times, consists of traditional literature. Ang mga characters ani nga story is the roots, the trunks, the leaves, and the fruits. So, akong i-share sa inyo ha unsang nitabo ani nga story. So, ako lang siyang gi-summarize para maklaro o mapadali ra pud ang akong report. So, once there was a mango tree. So, it had many large branches which gave generous shade and bore many luscious fruits. So, everybody who saw the fine yield fruit admired the tree and wished they owned a tree like it. So, usa ka adlawan na ay usa ka nag-complain nga tingog and was heard right at the bottom of the tree. So, niingon siya, "Poor me, what a burden I have to bear. I've got to carry such a load, the heavy trunk, all the huge branches, all the leaves and fruit. So heavy is my load that I'm buried alive in the soil." And it happened nga when something naay ni answer nga tingog and the trunk heard these sullen outbursts and siya ang mitubag and he said nga, "My dear brother, don't talk like that. Do you really think I have a nice life? You don't know I have to bear the weight of those great branches and all the load of fruit on me. I'm always frightened when there is a hard, real wind shaking my body. The real wind turns and twists my body so badly. You don't know how it hurts. I am fortunate if I don't break into two. If I do, then everything is finished." So, mo to'y answer sa trunk. And the grumbling of the trunk was heard by the leaves. They fretted to hear these words of envy about themselves, so they said grumpily. So, ningtubag ang mga dahon nga, "How sad are we to hear you both talking like that. How ungrateful you both are. Isn't it we protect you from the burning rays of the sun? And what about the rainy season? How can you say that we have a nice life? And it's the fruit who have a nice life, hanging and swinging all day. It is the fruit that counts for every day." So, nagtinumbuyay na sila, naaday ka ng jealousy nga nahitabo sa ilahang mga part, which is kung mo explain po ang isa about sa iyang life, mas kanang masad pa day ang iyang gibati kaysa sa uban. So, ang every part sa trees kay naa sila'y insecurity sa ilahang mga capabilities, which is ang uban di ay kay nagselos pud sa ila, which is wala pud sa uban. So, ang next is ang mitingog na pud kay ang fruits, which is the fruits were saddened to hear this talk. They said in a sulky voice, "My dear brothers and sisters, how sad are we to hear your words. It is far from the truth of what we actually feel and what we have to face every time we are the most to be pitied. So stop talking," the root said harshly again. "No need to talk anymore. All of you depend on me. If I don't exist, all of you who will not be there." So, ning reklamo pud si fruits nga unsay giingon nga yahay kay ko, which is dili kay ako may luoy kay ako may mahanginan, ako ang mahulog luoy kay ako ang sige katagak. So, while ang roots kay suko kayo siya, kay siya ang pinakaluoy, kay siya ang nagdala sa ilatanan, which is bugat kaayo. sila. One thing I learned from the story is think what others feels before you take a step. The true balance of democracy is when the leaves, fruit, trunk, and roots are all taken into the picture. And the conflict there is the man versus man. And I think the piece is not about the common story just to entertain. It is all about the balance of true democracy. And this story manifest how kanang equal at almost everything is lost. So kaning story nag-show po siya nga how true equality turns into a what do you call this, a propaganda, or it is an justifiable manner na how insensitive the people now, how people only think for themselves. So for me, that true democracy will not be uncancelled if things work in unity and fair. So that's all.